let me ask you guys a question. Do you guys even know why we're here? Any of you? No clue, huh? We're just out here making noise, trying to get attention, right? You have no idea. Do you even care why we're here? Who's the highest ranking officer?
Who wants to speak?
Okay, so you know why we're here. Of course it is. So there is a report then. When was it filed? When was it filed? August 17th. 2 days ago. So the complaint is on record that he filed, that he got assaulted by his neighbor and called a racial epithet. That's on, you have that on file.
Well, you said he didn't want to press charges, you have that on file.
Send them out
So
now.
the man didn't want to press charges.
He told us.
Okay. Well, that's why we're here. And I'm going to have that checked out, obviously.
We've already spoken about that. We've given him his evidence. Continue.
Well, thank you, sir. And I appreciate that. I appreciate your candid
He said that
and
there are
respectful.
witnesses in this crowd that can provide a statement. We're going to take the statements from the witnesses.
Awesome.
And you need to protect the family too and the neighbors that
Well, we got a
stepping
witness
up.
right here.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
He's the one that brought that to our attention, saying that we have a witness.
Yeah.
We need that witness to come inside, give their statement, their side of the story that they saw, and sign their names to it.
Can we do that now? Here and now? Okay, good.
Let's do it.
And so, and then I just want to also say this. Because I want you to understand something. Our movement is much maligned and frankly misunderstood. We get everything from black terrorists to, you know, Klan with a tan, to black supremacists, Nazis, you name it. It's hard to wrap your mind around it that is how people would perceive us in America, but not if you understand American culture and the very fabric of the American democracy.
I can just interrupt you?
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe that's the witness, right? Are they leaving? I don't want the witnesses to leave.
And we need to talk to them because they're traumatized too. And they're being harassed by their
When
neighbors
they're
and they're
ready, they don't have to
afraid.
do it today. When they're ready, they can come in at their own leisure.
Okay, but I'm telling you, you need to support those families in that neighborhood that are sticking up to this bully because they are afraid. I'm telling you because they have told me this.
There's been a neighborhood meeting set for tomorrow. at 6
I know,
p.m.
but you need to address it now,
We can hear
before
that
the
complaint.
meeting.
The whole neighborhood will hear everything.
Because this
complaint
guy
they
has
have.
done it before. And his neighbors need to stick up to him and not be afraid and know that if they call the police, they're going to come out, they're going to deal with it, they're going to fill out a report, and they're going to follow up on it.
And they did.
We need action, not words.
Right. The police responded and they took a report immediately.
Please remember that they're traumatized too. That 8-year-old boy saw it. He's traumatized.
Understandable.
That's where maybe the commissioner should at least take to go to that 8-year-old boy
Right.
and try to help him understand
Right,
what
rather than
happened
the mayor
and
calling
really deal
her
with it
and trying to shame her into keeping her
Because that's
mouth
an 8-year-old
closed.
kid.
They need to give that family
an adult
support.
Should a police officer who is high rank should try to help ease that fear?
Mm-hmm.
Because that 8-year-old now may have some traumatic issues
Sir,
with
the
police.
supervisor was called to the scene. He spoke to both people involved.
The 8-year-old though.
The 8-year-old.
The 8-year-old.
They spoke to both people.
Did they speak
who were
to the
making
child?
allegations
You have to
each
speak
other.
to the child at the child's
If you let
level.
me
Children come
finish.
up to you guys also, just so you
Neither one of them
know.
wanted to press charges. They told the supervisor that went down there. Both of them both said they don't want to press charges against the other. They're
Did you
dealing
speak
with
to
No,
the
I
child?
understand that. That's
Did you
the
speak to the
victim. But I'm
child,
talking
though?
about the 8-year-old child who
Right.
does not understand the legalities
Right.
and is going through some trauma issue.
That's them.
Right.
That, needs
That
to
child
come
that
from
never
a
heard the
ranking
N-word in his
officer
life.
to try to at least ease the fear of an 8-year-old who don't know all of that, because they're not on that report. Because the 8-year-old wasn't victimized. He was victimized by what he saw. He wasn't victimized by what took place. And that needs at least to be addressed to a kid
Right.
who
And they
now
weren't available
don't
for the time when
understand.
the officers were on scene. This came
This
out
is
after
why
the
we're
fact.
asking for ride-alongs with social services, with mental health.
And that's why people are asking to defund the police and invest in mental health and in homelessness and all type of community projects.
But we have that. So we have a relationship with DH.
So do you have a relationship with the African American community here in East Providence?
Well, we do just one at a time. We have a great relationship there.
Okay, so what? How do you keep track of the engagement? What is your metrics for engagement in the black community in East Providence? Yeah, like do you have ride-alongs? Do you have
Meetings, community meetings,
data?
right
Guys, we just had the
Or you
first
just tell them.
advisory board.
When is the last time that you did
How many
training,
hours
bias
of
training with
training
your
do you
force?
do with social workers?
That's what I was trying to explain before, so you cut me off a different question before I finish the first. We have a relationship with Family Services of Rhode Island, and we have a relationship with DH Lane, mental health counseling, and substance abuse. They are in our station, and they are actually dispatched to calls for people with mental health issues at the same time the police officers are. If not, if they're out, if not, they may be in the car with us. We also have a relationship with the Hope Initiative, also down the street, for opioid addiction. What that is within 72 hours, a person's house, there's a new statewide system now, so someone could be in Narragansett and have an overdose, but they're an East Providence resident. That would normally have gone unfound because it would be a Narragansett police's problem, although the person comes home to East Providence and we wouldn't have known about it. There's a new initiative where in your hometown we know about it. Within 72 hours we send an officer over there who's not like this. They're in a polo shirt. They don't have visible weapons. They have a counselor who's experienced in opioid addiction, and it takes a couple of visits. The first visit they may be suspicious and think that you're here to arrest them, find more drugs, they're paranoid. After a couple of visits they realize that they're there to help, and when they finally do want to break their cycle of opioid abuse, they can reach out to these people, and they have, and it has worked.
So what is your position, sir? Are you the chief? Okay, so I want to know, how committed are you? I want to know, because you're the chief, so the buck stops here. I want to know, how committed are you and this department to having a substantial and beneficial relationship with the African American community? Are you 100% committed?
I can give you the easy answer and say yes, but I'd rather you turn around and ask people that know me and know the community, who may look like you, may look like other people, and you can ask them and they will tell you 100%, and you can start right there with Gary.
Brother Gary, how committed is the chief to community engagement with black people? He said I could start with you.
Why is he saying that? Because Gary don't know.
I don't know, but you know, to start that relationship.
Sounds good on film.
Man, let me just start by saying, personally, that East Providence, throughout the years, there's been a history of white supremacy. There's no question about it. Racial profiling, extensive years, right? This department needs to be educated highly. It has nothing to do with the chief. It has to do with his offices. Protecting and serving our communities. People of color have been battered, beating up throughout American history, especially in East Providence. So as a witness, let's see if we can give them a chance to prove them to be committed to having a black dialogue in a black education forum about policing in Rhode Island and especially in East Providence. I think we should start with that first, Chief. Can we do that?
As you know, we have that advisory committee that we put together.
No. I'm saying the black community, not the opioid problem. I get it, Chief. But I'm saying we're talking about men and women and children of color in East Providence.
But that's what this advisory committee was intended to do, was to bring the message from the people who don't want to bring it to the police because they may be afraid to go to the police, to go to this board and
They are petrified to come to East Providence Police.
But now
Nothing to do with you,
there's a
Chief.
15-member panel that you can go to.
Can I say something?
Sure can.
Because I'm sick of hearing about education and retraining because they know how to treat me.
Right.
They don't treat me the way they treat you. So you don't need education. You don't need retraining. You need to treat them the way you treat me, and then we'll be all set.
That's all I ask you. Because 75% of arrests,
Sickening.
except 75% of arrests that happen to black people happen in the daytime. Out of all the profiling incidents that have been
They
reported.
can't see you at
And the
night.
reason is because they can see where they're pulling over. That's why 75% of all traffic stops for colored people happen in the daytime. Isn't that something? That's crazy.
haven't seen the data.
What are we doing in the daytime but being black?
So that's the type of dialogue that needs to happen. Why is there a disparity between race within this department? And Chief, I think it's on you to help connect with the community and try to see about bringing numbers down, how to really have the officers hear the voice of the community, and then begin to make some changes where the community, along with the officers, your department is fully aware, so that if that is the stat, that those stats are coming down, and that it's not so easy to continue to perpetuate what is a stat because of a color.
And that stat was East Providence, or was that nationwide? Or
Nationwide.
Okay, Nick, so, but you're the chief, you got stats. I would ask when you leave today, find that out and connect back with us, and let's have that dialogue so we can get something going.
Because this is the long time coming, Chief. We've been talking about this for a long time.
Very long.
You guys are Pawtucket on our radar, because East Providence, we are plugged into the community. Most black people are terrified of this city. I don't know if that's a badge of honor for you guys, if it's a humiliating thing, or you're indifferent about it. I don't know. It's just a fact. Myself included. Anytime I get off exit 4 or 5 of 195, I start shitting. Especially as soon as I hit the gas station, no matter where I'm going. Because I don't want to see you. I don't want to deal with you.
Do you have a record?
No, but I still don't even want to be harassed. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to be profiled. I don't want to be pulled over, especially in the middle of the night when nobody's around, in the middle of nowhere but me and a police officer. That's a nightmare for black people. A created nightmare. An institutional, systemic, and deliberate nightmare.
I hear you. Like I said, if it's a perception, to us it's a reality. If we don't see that is a problem, and you do, that means it's still a problem. So we understand all that.
And that's our reality.
That's a lot of people's reality. It's not just any one person's
It's black people's reality. That's what she's trying to so eloquently explain.
The other side of that is that I drive down these very streets multiple times a day because my kids take classes there and my other kid goes to a service down here. It has never once crossed my mind or my nervous system
Ever.
to feel unsettled.
Thank you.
All I wonder is, am I going to get a speeding ticket because I'm driving like a
That's
lunatic?
it.
And nobody has ever stopped me, and it's never been a concern for me. And the last thing I want to say about this is that your intentions are irrelevant. White people love to talk about their intentions all the time, but that advisory board, whatever, the intentions are irrelevant. What is the result of it? So
if the
do
intentions
what
are
they are
irrelevant, what
asking you to
is
do.
your
Don't do what you
suggestion?
think that is the right thing for the community that you're not a member of. Do what the community is telling you they need you to do, and they're telling you right now what they need you to do. Your advisory board, great, but do this too.
Because I want to say this. I want to say this, Chief, and I mean this in all sincerity from my heart. Because we lead with love here at BLM, right?
Right?
And BLM stands for something much greater than just black pride and black power. And you know what I mean. But we've reached a point in history where we are at a crossroads, right?
Yes.
And you're seeing violence erupt. People are unsettled. There's panic. There's fear. There's violence. So the only thing we can do is look the beast in the mouth, right? And not be afraid. Because either we're gonna kill it, we're gonna slay it, or it's gonna eat us. And we're at a position where we're never gonna go back. This feeling of uncomfortable, I know, I'm sorry. It's bad for me too. But this is,
We don't want you to go back.
no, right. That's something we have to do.
No, what you think? Don't you think this job would be easier if we didn't make you go back? And that you said, you know what? Those guys are okay. They're doing their best to keep our
You would
community
think
safe.
so, theoretically, but I spoke to a police officer and I was being candid with him and he was being candid with me in Providence. And he said the worst thing that he hated about George Floyd is look what it did, look what it caused. I said, yeah, right. So now you can't be openly racist or profiling again. It messed up the whole program. So we're not comfortable, we're not happy either, you know. But this is something that has to be done. Something we have to do.
This is a sickness just as much as COVID
Have
is.
you looked at the
In Rhode
results?
Island, I don't know of any, but nationwide, I've heard of a few big ones.
You heard about like New Jersey, how when
LA.
they defunded the police.
Yeah.
Did you know about what they did after, what the police
They-
did to reintegrate?
No.
Well, they had grill outs in the neighborhood, and they found that once the police became acquainted with the neighborhood, that they were less likely to profile and to have complaints when the police created that relationship. Have you guys taken any steps and doing anything
That's
like
the
that.
intention
No,
we're
we
talking about.
We would have if it wasn't for COVID. We had 3-on-3 basketball tournaments playing with police against the youth in the city, but a lot of
Is it the
our
black
hands were
youth?
tied. But
Did you guys figure out a way you can adjust with COVID?
Right.
Schools are adjusting, right? Work is adjusting, right? Everyone's still, we're still here, right? So
We
you
went
have
to
to
a
adjust
live
too.
water fire performance last night, and they adjusted. They can do it in the parking lot. We can do it in the parking
Have
lot.
you guys opened up Zoom since COVID has begun?
The thing is, we got to challenge them educationally, right? If there's a system
Systematic
that's
racism.
systematic racism where white supremacy has ruled this town way before this chief, way before the next chief. So there's a historical point in our legacy as black people and brown people in America. We have to challenge them all and educate them and re-educate them too. So that means they're not going to like what they're going to hear, but we have to show them what we mean by Black Lives Matter. We just have to.
We have to start with the systemic racism
But are you
because
familiar with redlining and the issue that started 2 years ago? And so this has been put up, especially in Minnesota. So when they finally allowed people of color to buy in certain communities that they were
Redline Donald.
right. So what do? The courts ruled it unconstitutional, and what does the state go and do? They built 195 as a divider between the two communities. So that's a long divide. We understand that.
Right.
World War II, soldiers come home. They want to buy houses. What do? They apply for a loan. Who was getting the loans? The white soldiers. There were certain areas that even the FHA themselves were saying 1 or 2 black individuals in this community will bring out property values for all, so let's keep them over here.
Right.
We understand all that. We
Right.
get that. So,
But the
this
problem,
doesn't fall like that there.
the problem is this, Chief, where, none against you again, the historical problem we have, in Rhode Island, is this police department. So, you guys are on the list for one of the highest racial profiling in the state.
But that's not true.
You're one of
report
them.
just came out, and the Providence Journal didn't even include us as one of the new additions.
No,
I was reading the ACLU report.
So the only thing I can give you factual is the last quarter of 2019, because the yearly report is still being compiled. In the last quarter of 2019, out of 550 car stops, 400 were white and 144 were
Let me just say that, Chief. I don't
Chief,
know
did
what
you
numbers
move up
that
in the ranks
is.
in East Providence? Yeah, so you've been around a long time, so you know what they're talking about. Are you denying it has ever happened? No, I'm asking you if you are.
What are they saying that happened?
About racist, about black people not wanting
Are you
to come in
denying
East
that there's
Providence?
no racial profiling in your police department?
You guys just-
That they don't come in
no,
here
no.
and
Who won't stand for that? How
and
can-
cook the
how can you
books
stand for that?
and talk about it and laugh at it? Are you denying that doesn't happen? Of course it happens.
you were out there
That's
in
what we're
Barrington, right?
talking about.
Like you guys were out there, you saw what we did.
Chief.
You guys all know that story, right? There's racism in every single community
It
in
has
Rhode
to be
Island.
addressed, or we're
And
going to be
it-
living
and
like this
it's-
for the next
And
rest
no
of my
one
life.
gets a buy. No one gets a buy. We see you as a human being. We don't see you as blue. You need to see all of us as human beings. We need to respect our rights to protest. We need more education. We need affordable housing. We need more health care.
I don't agree with you saying that I don't, because you don't know me.
No, I'm saying in general, like I don't see all of you guys as blue. I see you as human beings standing up here talking for yourself. I'm talking for myself.
Chief's a good,
Okay?
he's a good guy.
He's a
We
good
need
guy.
to
We're not
do-
coming against you, Chief.
Can we
I don't feel
count
that
on
you
you?
are.
Can
What
we
you say,
count on
Chief?
you?
I don't feel that you are.
Good.
Can we
Coming
count
down
on
with
you
that.
to commit to
respect
finding a way during COVID to engage with the black community as much as you can in order to integrate? Because if COVID should mean that you should have more time, right?
Do you have a computer?
Yeah.
Can you email me whatever you think? What, are you from
Sorry,
East
tell me what
Providence?
you do.
No.
So
Let 'em know who
if
you are, Corey.
and you know what? They
Tell
don't
them
have
what
to be
you
from
do
East
for us.
Providence. But if you know wherever
need to respect it.
can say that this is East Providence group, feel free to come from Pawtucket, Central Falls.
No, you
Providence.
guys got to
You
reach
got
out to
a
us.
card?
So,
Yeah,
What
let them
you
reach out
said,
to
say,
us.
like, what can we do?
Let
This
us
is
reach out to
me.
them. That's the old way. Listen, take control of this conversation and respect each other. That's what we have to do, and that's what we
You
here
got a
for.
card?
No, I
We
don't
need to
have
frame
one.
the
But what I'm
narrative.
saying
Can you get
is, you
Can
said
you get
that.
one?
Can you write down your email?
Can you get your
You were
identification?
saying that we were not doing enough to adjust because other things have to adjust. Schools, water fire, things like that. If you can provide an idea, say, you know what, I think the community would love that. We will
All
bring
right,
that idea.
I'm gonna
to the
ask you
community.
right now.
He's been waiting
Yeah,
patiently for a
you
while.
got it, Chief.
Yeah, we can do that.
So can I ask one question though? Isn't that the advisory committee's job? Isn't that the? I'm not just between. I'm asking for a yes or no question. Is that the advisory committee's job?
It's something that they can do. I wouldn't call it their job. And if they were not to come up
Is it
with this
their
idea,
charge?
we can still come up with our own ideas with the
How many
community.
people of color are on the advisory committee?
I don't know about that.
So no.
That's
The
what
reason why I'm asking is
Why is it funny? If the first meeting was
You
the other
should know
day,
that.
if the first meeting was the other day, if I could guess, there were 2 men out of the 15, the rest are women, and people of color were more than half. But I'm not going to give you a number so you can turn around on me and say, look, the chief doesn't even know what he's doing.
So are you going to be at that meeting? Are you going to be at the meeting with the mayor?
Oh, yeah.
You going to be there?
So my question is, you're saying that you don't know who's on the committee. You don't know if there's anyone of color on the committee.
No, there is people of color.
Is
Like I just said, it's
this
made up of mostly
information public? Because just being someone on an African American ambassador committee, everything's public, everything's to the public. My thing is, how are you guys going to show transparency to the community that you guys serve today? And how many officers from your station are actually living in the community?
I don't know. It's information.
And you brought the advisory board up, that's why we're questioning it.
All right,
You should
can I
have
ask you
this
something,
information.
just person to person? We're running the Barrington protest on the 29th. Will you guys come and support us? Will you march with us? Will you be there in solidarity with us as a community?
I'm not sure.
All right, can you just put it out?
I've been there. You said you saw
I
me
know,
in
that's what I'm saying,
Barrington before. We do support the cause. I was in Barrington the last time it was across at the White Church. I was there
Right,
then. So
and we're
I
going to
just-
be there Sunday again. That's what I'm saying. This is a systemic racism problem in all of Rhode Island. We all need to work together to do it.
Let me just
Why
say
you see
one
me in
thing.
multiple cities.
I just want to say one more thing, because I didn't get my point out, and this is very important. I want you guys to hear me too. That we are in a watershed moment in American history, right? You cannot stop the march of progress no more than you can stop time. We're headed in a direction where there will be a point of no return, and either we're going to be able to live together or we're going to die together. You know, and that's not a threat. That's just a fact based on our bloody history. And it's important for the future. My children, your children, and your children's children, to understand the dynamics of everything that are going on. Because like I said, we're leading in love. And that's the one thing that the black community has in spades. We might be lacking in other things, but we know how to love people, right? So you don't have to fear me. Going forward, I want your children and your children's children and his children to be born into a world where they don't feel threatened, where they don't feel intimidated, where they don't feel disenfranchised or marginalized. That's what I want. And if we create a fantasy world for them in which they're not prepared to be born and raised and live in a world that is not the world you guys know, a shifting demographic, a shifting world, a changing world. If they're not prepared, you're doing them an injustice. You're doing them a disservice. You're doing the children a disservice for not preparing them for the reality that is about to hit us like a Mike Tyson uppercut. By 2050, this country will be a majority minority. You know that, right? Of course you know that. Do you want your children to be born in a world where they are perpetuating this fallacy of a so-called master race? Do you want them to be born into that?
We're all for peace.
We
And
are
I want you to facilitate that. I want you to hold on. I want you to be that and embody that. And because your officers will see that and they will emulate that. Because people don't follow titles, they follow courage.
Can I just say this real quick? There's a young man that I spoke of earlier who was murdered by the East Providence Police. His sister just texted me on Facebook and let me know that every day that she gets off of the exit coming from Taunton Avenue, she is stopped. She was stopped yesterday. She's stopped every single day. And she feels as though this is part of the harassment. This is part of the harassment that's taking place. Because her brother has been murdered. You're going up in her face. She has no power. She has no power against you. She has to be at bended knee to you each and every time you stop her. Why are your officers stopping a young woman who's traumatized by the murder of her brother from your office? Why is she being targeted?
If she's ever want to provide her name, you can look into the
She
stops
can't even
every
give a
single day.
report because you rip it up and throw it in the trash. You don't accept these reports.
So,
You never get to see
so could I
that.
suggest you be the advocate, speak to the chief, And Chief, if you could then handle that personally so that that could be stopped.
They
That's
need
how
to
we
stop
deal
this.
with
This is
that.
harassment.
But she's scared. She won't
But you're
talk.
scared.
But
She's
you can
powerless.
advocate and now that you can do your
She's powerless. I have a question. Chief, what's your oath? What's your oath to the city of East Providence? What is your oath?
She just said, that's something you should bring up.
Do you know your oath? Are you aware of your oath? The oath that you take.
We served the public, we served you, we served you.
So I know under 2005, the Supreme Court signed in place that the police are not, the constitutional duty of the police is not to protect the citizens but to enforce the law. So is that your oath or is it to protect the citizens? I'm really curious on that.
I would assume it's both. We have to enforce the law, but it's a concern for the citizens. I mean, don't make me use
Chief, we just ask everything that you've heard, please take into consideration. You may practice one way, but please ensure that all of your officers, because you're not with them, are at least holding each other accountable. Because we wouldn't be here if something wasn't happening. If everything what you're saying to us is really what it is, we wouldn't be here today. So let this be a sounding that something isn't right going down the ranks. So we ask you to please, we hold you accountable now to hold everyone that you supervise and have manage over to make sure that they are aware of what's going on. Because there are people in East Providence, their voices aren't heard, there's fear, there's concerns, and so we're coming to you asking for you to make changes. And then
especially from day one.
Okay, and where you say there's kind of, you don't see racial profiling of racism, let me ask you personally to let that be one of your focal points so that we really know it's not happening in this district. Right?
Don't let this be your
We're
last
going to
visit.
close
I
it.
mean,
It won't.
welcome this, and
It won't be
we're
your
always
last
open for
visit.
dialogue and discussion, and ideas, especially ideas from what you guys are bringing up.
So, Father, we thank you because the Bible says, how can two come together unless they agree? And so, Father, as we have had this dialogue that you have created with us between Black Lives Matters and the representatives here in the East Providence, with the chief, the one that has the voice to every officer within this community, I ask that you will give him humility. I ask that you will give him the language. I ask that you will give him the boldness to be able to address any systemic racist practices that do not fall under what their ethics are to protect and serve and even enforce the law when need be. And I ask that, Lord, you will protect them, protect the citizens, and that this will be known when live PD ever comes back or any cameras come back, that it could be stated within the state that East Providence is championing the cause of all lives mattering, specifically Black lives mattering, when it comes to the stats, when it comes to the logistics of what it looks like on paper with this department. We ask that in God's name. Let's go in peace and shalom. Amen.
Everybody raise your fist. Raise your fist. Raise your fist.
I'd shake your hand if I could. Yeah.
Officers, can I get a fist?
We're not